Welcome to the Paper Trail, where we follow the journey, my journey, through the world of a CEO of a mortgage note fund. I'm Chris 70, and after years of buying, managing, and selling notes with 70 investments, I'm here to share the real stories behind the deals. What went right, what went wrong, and what I wish I knew earlier. From non-performing loans to seller financing to private lending, this show is about more than strategies, about growing your business, learning to follow the paper trail, and doing the due diligence that separates the pros from the rest. Now, let's hit the trail running. Welcome back to another episode of the Paper Trail podcast. I am your host, Chris 70. Today, I got to speak with William Tingle. William has been investing in real estate pretty much forever. He is specific into creative financing and subject to investing. But one of the things that I loved the moment I met William was there are people out there who take what he does and simplify it or make it seem like you can do this with your eyes closed, and also charge people a ton of money to learn this process. William is like me, no frills, no BS, calls it like he sees it, and really gets people educated on it, and actually has a $7 coaching program. He also recently just wrote a book called The 12 House Blueprint, which again, I recommend for everybody on how to generate revenue for buying basically a house a month or a house a year. So always have a great time speaking with William. I hope you enjoy this episode where we talk about what he is going to bring for value at the Paper Trail Conference. So hope you enjoy and look forward to catching the next episode. William, how are you doing today?
Man, I am doing fantastic. How about you?
I am doing pretty good. As I mentioned, pre-recording, it's been a crazy busy day, and my life has just been crazy busy lately. But hey, being an entrepreneur, running a business, that's what you got to expect from it. So
That's exactly right. It's something different every day.
exactly, which we love what we do, and which rolls into that first question that I always ask people is, let's start with your story. How'd you get investing in the first place?
Oh boy. Let's see. Okay. So I've got a story like a lot of real estate investors, entrepreneurs. I was in a
Accident?
career that I just fell into. I was a restaurant district manager. I worked 70 hours a week. I was miserable. I never saw my family. And I said, there's got to be something better than this. And one night, as it would happen, I was up. It was about 2 in the morning. I was watching TV, flipping channels, and there was Carlton Sheets. And a lot of people, younger people, won't remember Carlton, but he was one of the original gurus. He sold a late night TV infomercial real estate course called No Down Payment. And he had a bunch of his students on there and that had two brain cells. And I said, if those guys can do it, I can do it too. And I ordered it, and the course showed up a few weeks later, and I just did what he said to do. I actually opened all of the volumes and read them and took action. And I bought my first house about 30 days later, and then I bought another and another. And I said, whoa, this might really work. And so I said, okay, I need some goals. And I said, I want to quit my job in a year. And I bought 24 houses in 12 months,
Wow.
and I quit my job. So that's how I got started.
Wow. Now, were you buying those mostly with no money down or at the time or mix or?
Man, Carlton Sheets taught you to be creative. Now, my first house that I bought, I actually bought it with a small local bank. They funded it. A guy put me on to them, and he said, if you buy it cheap enough, they'll fund the whole thing. So I went in there with my Carlton Sheets course under my arm, and I sat across the desk from this old codger that was the president of the bank. And I said, I want to be a real estate investor. And he rocked back in his chair and he said, okay, bring me a deal and we'll see. So I brought him a deal a couple of weeks later, and he said, all right, you're going to have some skin in the game. And I said, wait a minute. My course said I didn't have to have anything down. And he said, well, I don't know what it said, but you're new and you're not tested. You're going to have some money in it. And I thought, and I said, okay, how about this? What if I put a $5,000 CD in your bank and you hold that as collateral, that due instead of a down payment. And he said, okay. So I borrowed $5,000 off a credit card and went and opened a CD at his bank. And he funded that full thing. I walked out of closing with a check for $813.
Oh,
And I said,
wow.
man, I thought,
Well,
man, this stuff really works.
well, it's interesting just again as we hear this because few things. One is your last name's not Rockefeller, so it's not like you had bags of money behind you. It's oh, you go buy 24 homes. Yeah, because you probably came from money.
Right.
Sounds like basically you literally took a credit card advance, which I typically tell people don't ever do that, please, unless you're fiscally responsible, and started buying property with it. And basically by following somebody's blueprint, which everybody else could have. You probably ordered a Floby maybe that time right after it on the infomercial. But
Yeah.
the point being for people listening or watching is a lot of us out there, you did, and we'll get into that later, but many people out there provide exactly what it is you need to do to be successful or start to get some traction.
Yep.
And you just got to take the time and focus.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you this, and I used to tell my wife this, and she experienced it firsthand with the first house we bought when we moved to Northwest Arkansas. I said, I have bought no less than half a dozen properties over the years that had a Carlton Sheets course in a closet, in a bedroom closet. And without fail, the first volume, because there's 3 or 4
Yep.
volumes, the first volume was open, but the rest of them were still in shrink wrap. That is an absolute, you can count on it. And the first house we bought here had a
Yep.
Carlton Sheets course in the box. It sure did. So you got the solution right there, but most people just won't follow through. They see something, they hit a roadblock, and instead of saying, how can I get past this? How can I make this work? They go, oh, this is too hard.
Yep. So let's dive a little bit deeper. What's something about your journey that a lot of people may not know about you?
I don't know if this was during the journey, but something a lot of people don't know about me is that I quit school in the 9th grade. So
Okay.
obviously I didn't have money, and I don't have a lot of education either. So you don't have to have money, and you certainly don't have to have a lot of formal education to
Yep.
do
So
this.
you weren't the Harvard guy, you weren't the Rockefeller, just ordinary guy who went and did it. And today, again, written a book, has a course, is successful. Just goes to show, boils really down. I had this conversation with my son the other day. You should be thankful about the intelligence that you have, but it only gets you to a certain spot. Hard work and grit is what makes, in my mind, the haves from the have-nots. So that's,
I agree. I totally agree. And most of the students I've met in my investing and my teaching, the tougher they were, the lower the point they were at, it increases their chances of being successful. People that have it too easy, that have too good a paying job, or they don't hate their job enough, it's harder for them to make that break. But man, when you hate where you work and you're barely getting by, and I look like 95% of the people in this country do, I was probably 2 or 3 paychecks away from living in the street. And I made 70 grand a year in 1999, and that wasn't bad money. But still, I spent what I made. I was not a good steward of what I had. Most people aren't. And as a result, we charged up Christmas gifts and we paid them off with a tax refund in January. And I know a lot
yeah.
of people that do that.
And I look at, again, myself and people who've heard my story. I left a cushy corner office making roughly quarter million, whatever dollars a year, loving my job to do what I do today. And a lot of people would look at me and say, you're freaking nuts. You had a great job,
Yeah,
job security, making great money. I was executive in the company. And it's, yeah, I'm going to throw all that away to go start my own company. And you know what? Best decision I ever made. And probably like everyone else, wish I would have done it 10 years earlier.
that's
But
right.
like you said, you get caught in that position of you're so comfortable with where you're at that it's like, why should I consider doing something? And I've talked about this on other podcasts about why I did that, but it's hard. And like you said, the easier people have it, the harder it is for them to do something.
It's harder for them to make that
Yep.
change. They're afraid. And then
Yep.
you're surrounded by people saying what you just said. You're crazy. When you got your family and everybody that you go to church with or you socialize with saying, What are you doing? So it's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. Especially again, we're close in age that we come from the generation of a lot of times it's like you go get a W-2 and save in your 401k, and that's what you should do for 40 years before you retire. And that's the path that they teach you when we were younger. It's this is what you should be doing. And it brainwashes you that if you want to do something else. I remember my first job offer, I didn't like the offer and I didn't take it. And I was out of just, it was in between, like I hadn't technically graduated yet. And all my friends already had offers. And I told my parents, I'm not going to accept this. And like, you're nuts. It's a job. Just start with something. I'm like, I think something better. And then something much better came on. And at this time, I started out college making 35 grand a year, 25, 30 years ago, which back
Mhm.
then was like rich. Now, whole different story today. But
Yeah.
yeah. So let's dive a little bit more about you, your investment process, philosophy. What is your investment philosophy, if you can describe, in one or two sentences, and how did you come about with that philosophy?
I think part of the reason that I have the one that I have is because most of the sellers that I deal with now, real estate investors, we're generally not paying retail for houses. And in fact, the name of our investment company is Plan B. Okay, we're Plan B properties because we're not most people's Plan A, but because most of the people that I deal with are under financial stress or in foreclosure or something along those lines, I think it's really important. And this is what I teach my students. You have to approach your sellers first with a heart to help and care about their needs and what you can get for them before the deal. In fact, that's our approach with people in foreclosure is listen, we don't even mention buying their property. I door knock people in foreclosure. And the first thing that they hear from me is, hey, I'm here to see if there's any way I can help you. And it's this shock on their face. And how can you help me? What are you looking to do? Do you want to keep your home or do you want to sell your property? I'd like to stay. Okay. Have you talked to your lender? No, because a lot of them haven't. They're scared. They're
Yep.
ashamed. They're embarrassed. And I
Oh,
said,
as a
okay.
non-performing note holder, trust me, it's when
Yeah.
we do that same thing, people are like, oh, I was always too afraid. And I try and educate people, the sooner you can start conversations, the better off you are versus waiting.
And the more options are
Yeah.
available to you. But that's the first thing we say, okay, let's go sit down and pick up the phone and call your lender and see
Yep.
what programs are available for you to save your home. And we've
Yep.
helped countless people stay in their house. We never bought their house. We helped them. We said, congratulations, best of luck, and didn't charge them a penny to help them. Now, if they can't qualify for any programs, if they still don't have a job, if they've lost their job and that's the problem, then we'll talk to them about selling their home in a way that'll save their credit, get them some cash to start over. But that's what I always say. The first thing we do, we approach a seller with a heart to help. How can we provide what they need? And if we buy the house, make a deal that works for us too.
Yep. We've known each other for a while, and if I were to describe everything about you in one word, I would say genuine. And what I mean by that for people listening is William is very genuine in everything that he does and says. And in the world that he plays in with some of the sub two stuff, there's a lot of people who are not genuine and will pretend that they want to help a homeowner in distress, and they're really just trying to help themselves. And it can sometimes give the industry a bad name. There's certain states that can't even now communicate with borrowers in pre-foreclosure because of so many different scams that have been out there. So it's something that, you know, I hear it's refreshing because talk about the Paper Trail Conference in a minute and having you part of this event. But the people I wanted to bring and speak at this event are the people who, two things. One is they're genuine, they have integrity, they're honest, and they actually are doing what they teach people. There's
Right.
so many people today who have a course. If people not are just listening, I'm air quoting right now on an investment strategy that they have never even implemented, or they did it for one or two times. And next thing you know, they're like writing a book or training course on how to do something because they did it once.
Yeah,
So
that's true. It's really given what we do a bad name as
yeah,
investors. I'm telling you, it's going to get tough. It's going to get, it's bad now. It's so much different than when I got started, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it continues to get worse. And interestingly enough, I think the internet is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's great because there's so much information. It's very easy to, as an investor, invest anywhere. Where when I bought my first house in 2001, I was literally going to the real estate office to look at the flyers for homes or in the newspaper for what open houses because internet, I think, was around, but it really wasn't around. And then from that standpoint, but yeah, it's been some interesting changes over the years, to say the least.
Yeah, it sure has. I tell these guys all the time, y'all don't know how lucky y'all have it. You've got Zillow, and back when I got started, there wasn't social media, there wasn't YouTube, there were no videos to watch.
Yeah,
And you got these chat rooms, and you'd ask a question and pray that somebody that was one of the top dogs would answer it for you. And we used to drive for dollars and then go to the tax office once a week and look up all the addresses so we could mail to people. And now it's
yep.
just at your fingertips. So it's so much easier.
I'm laughing because I'm like, I'd be in a chat room or something, listening or watching something, but then my sister would pick up the phone, which would immediately disconnect the
Oh,
AOL connection.
AOL,
And
yeah.
then she needed the phone, so you couldn't get back on, and then you miss whatever it is you're trying to do. Man,
That's for sure.
so
Yeah. Good time.
my kids will never know, never understand. Without spoiling your thunder, we have you speaking at the conference. What's one thing you'd like for the people attending to either learn or think differently about creative finance and subject to after hearing you talk?
Yeah, it's interesting. We just got through talking about this, but the main thing I want people to understand is that there's a couple of things. Number one, creative finance, and especially subject to, isn't always about taking advantage of sellers or abusing them in some way. You can take over payments on a property and your seller be perfectly happy with it and have a really good outcome. And secondly, it's just that we're in such a hustle culture now, especially when it comes to real estate and real estate training. That's the big thing, man. I buy 30 houses a month, blah, blah, blah. And I've been teaching for years because I do this and I understand it. A few chosen deals a year will set you free and let you live the lifestyle that you want. That's really what I want people to understand, that subject to isn't bad, doesn't have to be bad, and that you don't have to work a job in investing. You can really have a good lifestyle, travel, do what you want to do. And I know this because I do it. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say you're, traveling, and I know you traveled and moved around, and I think some people get to the point of trying to count too many doors, and it's the male ego, especially, of counting doors.
yeah.
And I remember in college I was in a fraternity, and you always joke, someone asked, oh, compare how many beers somebody could drink in a night. And I remember one time someone's like, yeah, these boys count, men drink. And similar, like real estate, in the sense of the big boys in the industry, they're not counting how many doors they have, they're just bury their heads down in getting the work done. If I asked you, probably, how many properties have you owned in your career and so forth? Most people I know have an idea, but they're like, I don't have that exact number. Like when
That's
people ask
right.
how many notes I've bought, I've had 600 on my slide for the last year of how many notes I bought. I'm like, yeah, it's probably 700 or whatnot. Or like in my fund, I'm like, I think I got 85 to 90 right now. I could tell, I know a lot about our loans, but I don't keep track of. It's not a competition for me of, oh, my ego boost. And it's the same thing with you from what I've seen.
Right.
So
Yeah, for sure. There's no way I could tell you how many houses we bought over
yeah,
26 years. It's just not that important. I can tell you, that they're profitable because that's
yeah,
certainty. That's what I call it, certainty of profit.
yep,
I see people, man, I got to buy 3 deals this month, and they'll make some really stupid decisions to meet that.
number.
I'm
Yep,
not. My goal is always to buy one house a month. And
yep.
what? If I miss this month, it's okay.
Yeah. Now you've worked with all types of people, investors. What's one thing, and again, you mentioned Carlton and so forth, who, clearly a mentor to you in that sense of things. What did you think made him or somebody else great in your opinion, or somebody to look up to or really admire or pivot or figure out what they did and follow?
You know what I really loved about Carlton Sheets, and I think to this day, of course, Carlton's been dead for several years. He was a bucket list thing for me. I wanted to meet him, but I
Yeah.
waited too late. One of the really great things about his course was, now it was an inch deep and 10 miles wide. It covered a lot of stuff, but not very in depth. But it was always about treating the seller fairly and doing ethical deals. You didn't see any stuff in there about taking shortcuts or doing this or doing that you hear about these days. So, from that standpoint, I'm really glad I got my start with that, because he was all about ethical investing. And I think that's really important. You make a ton of money in this business and you don't have to
Yep.
hurt anybody to do it.
Yep. That 100%. You don't, again, you can do the right thing and still be very profitable in this business.
You certainly can. And I can give you, if you don't mind, I'll give you a quick example of the
Yeah,
last
no, I'd love to. Yeah.
we just closed on it last week. And this guy called us off of our radio ad. That's one of the marketing things we do, is radio. And he actually lived about 10 minutes from me. It was a great little 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick home that he had bought 3 years ago. His dad died a couple of months ago. He's in a life transition thing. He and his dad were very close. His dad lived in Hot Springs, which is a few hours from us. And he wants to move back to that area. And he just wanted out from under that mortgage payment. They had a great loan, a 4% mortgage, a really good payment on the house. He owed $214,000 on a $300,000 house. He could have listed and sold that house for $300,000. He'd have probably paid $30,000 in agent's fees, closing costs, and walked away with $50,000 or so. And he said, listen, he said, I know I've got some equity in this house. I just want to get back home. I want certainty in when we're going to close. I don't want to have to wait around and mess around. And I just want it gone. And I said, you just want to sell it for what you owe on it? And he said, if I can get it done on the closing date that I want to close, yes. And we, of course, we took over the payments on that house and he moved back home. Now, that guy gave me 30% equity in that property, but he was happy. We were certainly happy.
Yep.
If he'd asked for money, I would have written him a check. But he said, listen, he said, I just want it gone. So that's what we did. So he was a happy
So
man.
are you gonna now put a wrap on it, or are you gonna rent it out, or what's the next step?
That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make someone else a homeowner that couldn't buy with a bank. We'll get probably 20,000 down on that house. We'll finance them. We'll go to a title company for a closing. We don't charge points. We don't charge junk fees. They pay $750, which is the title agent's fee to close it. All of their 20,000, except for that 750, will go toward their down payment, and then we'll finance them at current bank rates, about 7%. So it's a good deal for everybody.
Yeah, that's one thing that we preach a lot, is what we do. And again, we focus on the non-performing note side of things, but everyone thinks everything has to be a net sum zero of, if somebody wins, somebody got to lose. There's so many situations like this one here that you've got 3 winners in this thing. The original seller who got out from under it, and he's okay with giving up a little bit of the piece of the pie, because again, it's peace of mind of getting closed by a certain date. You get the property at slight discount, and then you can put also a homeowner in that property that now gives you a down payment, which is cash, and then arbitrage that wrap with the cash flow, and somebody's buying a house that they may not have gotten from a bank that is getting it at bank today's rates. So everybody wins.
That's right. You don't have to charge people. And listen, I'm out there too. I hear the stuff that's taught and everything in the marketplace too. There are people out there that'll finance somebody at 11, 12%, whatever the law will allow. And it's just not necessary. I want my buyer to be able to afford that house and to stay for a really long time, because every month that they stay in that house, I'm going to make about $500 in cash flow. And if they stay for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, I'm still making money.
Yep. It's interesting you mentioned that, because if you jump that rate, okay, maybe it adds $100 or $150 a month, and people are like, that adds up over time, and hits me on in the rental side of things sometimes, where we've got a rental unit that rents for about $1,750. And I remember one time when we were at $1,600, we were going to raise the rent to $1,650. And the people really came back and said, hey, can you just keep it at $1,600 for one more year? And asked us, and great tenant and so forth. And they're like, if not, there's one of the partners had lost their job. So they're a little tight on cash, but they're back working. They're just trying to. And my wife and I talked about, like, yeah, we're going to keep them at $1,600, because for an extra $50 a month, if they move out, it's going to take me a month to get somebody in. So I'm losing 1,600 to get, how long is it going to take me to get that $1,600 back? It's going to take me years. Like, why? Sometimes trying to scrape that last dollar from everybody doesn't always get you the win.
Exactly. Exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about 600 extra dollars a year. And if they moved out, you'd have at least a month of vacancy. You'd
Yeah.
probably have to do a little bit of freshening up for your next tenant. That's
Yeah.
probably another $1,000, $2,000. It's just not worth it. If you got a good person in your house that pays you every month, so what if that
Yeah.
rent's just a little bit lower
Right.
than the market?
Oh yeah, and it's Montgomery County, Maryland, so you don't get anything done for 1,000. Would have cost 5,000 just to have somebody blow their nose inside the place too. Yeah,
That's right.
no, you're 100% right. So we talk about some of the things we're sharing right now, and I'll say some of the mistakes that we see people making, trying to scrape the last dollar, trying to take advantage. What's another mistake newer investors make, and how do you try and help to avoid them? And I know we don't have 4 hours to finish recording this because William and I are in some of the same Facebook groups, and
Yep.
some of the stuff that we just see and people do is just, I just like my mind implodes of what we've seen people do that as a newer investor just makes you cringe because they either got very bad coaching or I don't know, they just are too gung ho. I'll let you share a few.
The main thing for new investors to me is just the ones that just overthink every detail and think they have to know every single thing before they get started. Get out there and start having some conversations with people. For example, the deal I just shared with you, I answered the phone. He called me from an ad. He could have called me from a bandit sign or anything else. I had a conversation with him. He told me the offer. He told me, I just want to get rid of this house. He basically wrote the contract for me. So hire someone or get a local mentor, somebody at your RIA that does what you want to do and have them there on speed dial. If you didn't know anything and you had a conversation with Curtis, that was my seller, anyone could have called me and said, listen, I'm sitting here talking to Curtis. He just wants to get rid of his house. He's willing to let me take over the payments. What do I need to do next? I could have stepped them through anything. And a lot of
Yeah.
local mentors could do that as well. Don't wait until you know everything because you never will. I learn stuff every day.
Oh, I have a call tomorrow with a new client vendor that I sent over some stuff today that we're going to be discussing. And I'm like, talking to my team, I'm like, I have zero idea how any of this works. So I'm going to be on the call tomorrow and basically be first thing is, can you just make sure and walk me through, what a certain aspect of this so I understand it because I think I conceptualize and grasp it. As an engineer, like you're trying to put all the pieces and parts together, overthink it. And I'm like, just explain it to me. And I know some people would basically like they would have gone and studied what were the conversation for 6 months and would never have picked up the phone and called this person and said, hey, I see you do this. I would love to potentially work on some type of partnership with you. Can we get on the phone and talk about it? And person's, yeah, love to. And you're the exact type of person that we want to do business with.
As people, they'll get so hung up on I want to see your postcard. What does your postcard say? And I say, listen, I'll share mine with you. But I'm going to tell you this. If you just mail something that says, hey, I drove by your house today. It looks like it's a little bit neglected. What are you thinking about doing with it? You're so
Yeah,
far ahead of the person that's perfecting the postcard. You're
yeah,
mailing. Get
yeah.
it in their
Like,
hand and start a conversation.
what should I name my LLC? What
Oh
state
man,
should, yeah,
that's right.
it doesn't matter. My first LLCs were named after my dogs, my kids. What else?
Here's what
Basically, my home address the street I grew up on. Who cares? You
Here's one
know?
for you. When I got started, I didn't know how to form an LLC. And remember,
Yeah,
yeah, that was pre-social media,
yeah,
pre
oh yeah,
it was courses and binders and AOL chat rooms. I didn't know how to form an LLC, but I wasn't going to wait until I knew. I started
yeah,
buying houses, and guess what? They were bought in William Tingle's name. How
yeah.
stupid is that? But I had 4 houses before I ever had an LLC. Because here's the thing, Chris, and you know this: if you
Yeah.
don't have anything to protect,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Though that's the thing. I see people creating all these multi-level when they're going to buy their first property, and I'm like, it's overkill. Or they buy it in their name and want to transfer it to LLC, and I'm like, any good attorney will pierce that like a warm piece of butter. But Yeah, no, it's the one thing that I'll say that I see newer investors make, which to tag up along with what you said about the analysis paralysis part is they go to learn everything. And then once they think they do everything, they take everything they learned and throw it away and cut corners and not pay the right title company or think that they're being smarter than somebody else and doing something that is completely just mind blowing and contradictory to everything they were taught and learned, and then realize after the deal implodes, like, oh, I probably should have done it that way.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I
Yeah.
so I can't tell you like in the note space how many people buy loans without running a title report.
Oh man. And listen, I've heard teachers now, I say teachers, uh,
Yeah.
hey, you can buy sub two. You don't need a title report. You're getting a deed. Listen, we had a deal, I'm telling you, and this was one of those deals. This was a couple of weeks ago, actually. The long story, but the person on the mortgage got the loan for their son and daughter-in-law. So the son and daughter-in-law could live in the house.
Yeah.
Daughter-in-law and son got a divorce. Daughter-in-law had been living in the house, not making the mortgage, but she agreed to sell us the house for $10,000 cash to her, subject to the mortgage. And she had a 2.8% mortgage. Man, I'm telling you, I was drooling. This was a great house.
Yeah.
There was one loan modification. We knew she bought it for 235 5 years ago. House is worth about 400 now. In great condition, need a little bit of cleaning up. Title search comes back. Not only is the
IRS.
loan mod, there's one for 12,000, then there's one for 60,000. That not only did they put that 60 on the back end of the loan, they also modified the terms of the first mortgage. Now the first mortgage isn't 2.8% anymore, it's 7.15%. And you know that deal, I went from drooling to I'm sorry, I can't help you. This just won't work. So
We
yeah.
had somebody, so again, we know enough about sub two to get ourselves in trouble, but we typically don't run it as part of our business. We had somebody reach out to us recently in California that wanted to do something that they had. We're talking, it was like a $3 million property. And he was claiming that there was only like 800,000 owed on it, and it was a low interest rate, and was trying to figure something out and sell it at steep discount or come up with something that could work. And we basically said, hey, do you have title? No, I haven't run anything and so forth, but none should come up. So we had somebody just quickly look and run kind of a soft title report on it. And like, guy's got a $6 million IRS lien on the property. Like, yeah,
Yeah, that might be a problem.
that's gonna kill every single deal. Oh, and by the way, there's a list pendant filed on the first that you haven't paid it in 2 years. Oh yeah, I forgot that part of the story
It's
too.
funny
So
what sellers will forget sometimes. I've had them forget about second mortgages and other things. It's just, oh, yeah, I remember that now.
oh yeah. So
You got to have title report.
So as we wrap up, I'll do a quick lightning round. I'll ask you three quick questions. First one, what's one word that you would describe the current real estate market?
Changing.
Yep. 100% agree with that. So,
It
uh,
is changing.
oh, definitely is in many aspects. So what's one thing you've changed about your mind, your philosophy, your business about in the last year?
Rentals. I've been a no rental guy for 15 years, and Jody and I have just recently decided, for a couple of reasons, tax reasons, and just
Yeah.
getting older reasons, that having a few well chosen, adding just a couple every year might be a good idea now.
Yeah. Okay. And one person besides Carlton you'd thank for your success.
If I need to be specific, I would say Bill Bronchick. I don't
Okay. Yep.
know with him,
Yep.
but he's really, after Carlton Sheets, he was my next teacher
Okay.
and taught me a lot of stuff. We actually do events together today, so I'm really fortunate.
Okay. Yep.
But in
He's,
general, the old gurus
yep.
have, it has a bad name now because there's so many what I call new. They
Yep.
haven't been around long enough to be gurus, but the old
Yep.
guys, man, if it weren't for them, I'd be flipping hamburgers.
Yeah. I know Bill's got a lot of great education content. Is he attorney?
He is. He has a title company in Colorado and
Product. Yep.
closes deals for some of my students in Colorado.
Yep. So great. William, thanks for coming on today. If people want to reach out, learn more about you, I know you just released the book. You've got a coaching class. Why don't you tell people about the book, the coaching, and then how people can reach out to you?
Sure. The best way to find me and get to know me is on my YouTube channel at sub2tv.com, SUB, the number 2, TV.com. And we've got about 1,000 videos over there right now, teach you a whole bunch of stuff, won't cost you anything. But you can check out the book at 12houseblueprintbook.com, 12houseblueprintbook.com. And it's just really the model that Jody and I use in our business, buying 12 houses a year.
Once a month,
to create an awesome lifestyle. So yeah, check that out. And we coach some people. So go check out the YouTube channel, see if you like me. And if you do, there's plenty of links over there that'll get you to where we can teach you.
Yeah. Well, William, thanks for coming on today. Always a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you in the near future.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited about your event and being there.
Well, great. Thank you all. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Paper Trail. I hope today's insights help you sharpen your note investing strategies. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow investors. I'm Chris 70, reminding you to keep doing the work, trust the process, and always follow the paper trail. Until next time.